Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here and to share something from my not that long experience in games. Let me introduce myself. I'm Alexandra and I'm in games since 2011. I've started my way as a junior game designer and smoothly switched to story creation in various modes. First of all, it were social media games. Days back then when it was pretty popular, and then it moved to mobile market as it was and still being pretty huge. So I have some background. As you see, I've published 3 books myself, and I know something about the story and actually wanted to show you not how to build the story because it's like plenty of data about it in the internet. You can just Google and be another writer. Super easy. What I want to talk about today is a business. Yep, business and narrative. We are having like pretty challenging times so far, and it would be really cool to know how we could not to reduce amount of story in games, but enrich the game using the story, and rather reduce amount of budget we use for nothing. Yep. And it's not another Gantt or another project management tool to use, but how to implement story smoothly and how to use story actually to decrease expenses like dramatically. Yep. So let's start with this particular thing. We have, as you may see, there is a map of the possible game. To reduce the amount of interactions, I suggest to use the prototype concept. So we don't plan all the game from scratch. We are planning just a prototype to see how actually our future customers, no matter if those customers you have before from your previous projects, or it's absolutely brand new stuff you're gonna present to the world, doesn't matter actually. What is matter is to see how people accept the project you are offering. So we are using the prototype for that. And the best way to use prototype smoothly integrated into the game flow, into the narrative flow, we initially use just a typical main workflow. But what I suggest is not to start with this, but to start with the story. Why is that? The thing is, no matter how complex or how simple the story is for your project, any project has a story, even if it's hyper casual gaming. It doesn't matter because you still have something to introduce, some world to introduce, some rules for this world to introduce. Why, what, and where is happening. It's like the 4 basic structures we use to depict what is happening in the game. In the interactive experience, it doesn't even matter because you can use this for in any interactive experience your player will be experiencing. So, we need to clarify what, when, and where is happening and why. This way, we are building our first planning structure because as soon as we know how we want to introduce the game, this is the way we know what the tools, what's the tech, what's the art, what's the animation, what's the marketing purpose we have. All these details are being pretty clear when we're starting to show something. For instance, we can show like a Witcher, we can show Red Riding Hood, any possible idea. Let's imagine that we have like Red Riding Hood story. What is happening here? Girl traveling alone through the forest. When it's happening? For our game, it doesn't matter, but if we want to introduce the girl just hanging around in the forest and picking up flowers, it's probably summer. So, summer in the forest. Okay, where? Forest. Not that super scareful, because as we see the girl traveling through the forest, it shouldn't be scareful. It should be something comforting and nice and sweet. And why? Why the poor little girl traveling alone through the forests. Probably there is nothing new for her, so she's in a comfort zone. She's traveling to her granny and having some goods for her. So, this is how we plan. We are not revealing all the characters for all the project. We don't build all the dramatic structure from scratch. We don't even need the wolf to be created on this step. Because on the very beginning, we need to clarify who is the characters we use. For the very beginning, we need mom, we need Red Riding Hood, we need stuff she use, and the wolf will be revealed closer to the mid part of the game because initially travel starts without the dramatic experience. Or we can use a dramatic experience, but anyway, we need to clarify what we need to introduce, what the interaction player will have through the game. If you want Red Riding Hood start with a fighting with a wolf, please enjoy, but just include it into the depiction what we're gonna use. So we are starting not the main workflow, but with the clarifying what we want gonna reveal to the user. Then we switch to the main things we need to develop for every department. For the tech side, for the art side, for animation, marketing, UX, you can add whatever tools you need, whatever segments you need. Just to clarify, because for instance, for art, we need 3D, 2D, we need level design as well. It all can be separately set up, like main art needs here, cinematics, NPCs, locations. We can have level design here with all the location divided. So it's totally up to you. But as soon as we know what is happening in the first part of the story, we know exactly how many characters we will be using. So we won't develop all the game. So we clarify how many characters we need. What's the items all the characters use? What's the items player will interact with? What the locations player will investigate through this only the prototype. 2D, 3D as well, cinematics, if we ever have them. If we start with any intro that will reveal some story or some conflict. This is where we set up the budget actually. What's the UX UI we use for the user flow? What's the tutorial we will use? Because tutorial steps are crucially important on the very beginning. As soon as we have tutorial steps, we know what's the data, what's the characters, and what's the art we use, and what's the animation we use on the first step, on every step of the story to be revealed. So the story is being revealed not as a parts of text integrated in some randomly set up mix of mechanics, but through particular parts of the gameplay. We reveal the story using exactly the art we developed for this particular stuff, exactly the mechanics we created for this particular stuff. Level design. Here's the tutorial we use. On the very beginning, we set up the first location. We clarify what we need for this location. What the level designer set up the location with. Like timing, setting, obstacles player need to overcome, so we could depict the main mechanics. What's the tutorial we introduced to the player? And here, as you say, we can set up the main world map, the locations, but only those we use for prototype. And there we have smooth integration of every step. So players start the game, like Red Riding Hood picking up flowers, enjoying herself in the forest, having nice sunny day, walking to her poor granny, having some mild cold, and just enjoying herself, and then meeting some wolf. So the gameplay is simple, nothing special happening. The very few amount of art is included, very few amount of interactions and mechanics. But again, if you want to change the flow, if you want to introduce to the player the more mechanics possible to give them attracted, to have them attracted to a game, to your options, to show that your game is really something very, very special, you need to set up the flow where you use the tutorial to introduce the mechanics if they are not super intuitive. You need to clarify what the characters you use, what the tools actually you need to introduce all the mechanics, and then integrate them with the story. Here we have animations. Exactly as we set up here, we know what exactly animations we need for characters, for effects, for whatever else purpose. So we will have everything clear and simple setup. For UI UX, we mix tutorial flow, user flow, um, inventory, main screen. Sorry. So we do know what exactly we need for every location, for every mode. If there is a fighting, like Red Riding Hood fighting with a wolf, why not? Picking up flowers, setting something up into the inventory, all the details, we know exactly what we need to do because we have particular flow to hold on, to stay with, tutorial steps, main story goals, because all our goal is just to show how good the game can be. And this is art we introduce, this is a setting we introduce, this is the interactions we introduce. This structure can be scaled to any side of game, any interactive experience. And if you want it to be more rich in possibilities, you can use extras. There is a special slot we use for something like, let's integrate more cinematics. Let's come up with new mechanics. It's all possible to be integrated. As soon as you know what exactly you've been developing, and as soon as you see that there is some gap, or you have some extra time, or you feel like during developing the prototype, the first draft like could be better, or you could improve it with some extra tools. You can include it because you know already how much time presumably you will spend, how much budget you will spend on exact tools you will develop. Because, for instance, from all of my experience through almost 13 years for now, it's been held the particular way of developing stories through the game. You rather have the prototype already set up that only includes mechanics and setting, and they are absolutely not connected to any story. There is just an idea being shared through the team, or just the art or mechanics and characters that been used for previous projects and stored, and so just need to be used some way, and then we trying to glue it all together and make it all work, but it barely works because it's impossible to integrate the parts that are always separated. They have been developed separately from the very beginning. Or another way that the story is being developed while the characters and setup and locations are being built. So again, we are trying to integrate absolutely not compatible stuff, no matter if the setting is the same. But player needs a purpose. Player needs a reason to come through particular zones, locations, particular tutorial steps, to investigate the location, to find out what is the goal, to jump into the flow. They need to see what's the purpose. If everything is working all together, if players dive deep into the story immediately from the first tutorial step, if they just press the button or just take a sword, it feels differently. It dives you into the direct flow when you have all the details of the game integrated all together. And to make it work as easy as possible is the best way to set up the project management tools along with the story that is already set up. So you need to clarify what exactly the story is about. You need to know this a bit earlier, a bit before you set up the Gantt, before you set up the list of stuff to do for every department. The best thing to do is to clarify which particular part you need to set up for this particular, let's say, sprint. It's super clear when you know the story. You don't even need to plan something because it's already clear. Because on this part of the game, it's just a Red Riding Hood. We have like her mom. She could even not to be presented as a character itself. It can be just a dialogue and like a small icon. So again, we don't need to develop lots of characters from scratch. We just need to develop as small bundle as possible to see how it works, to see how they all work all together. Let them play together and see how it looks like, how it feels like. It saves so much money, time, like all the resources you have been using for development, just because you know what exactly you will integrate and when. If we would love to know the story of our lives, we would exactly implement data knowledge. We would exactly know which stuff to learn, which experience to have to make our life better. This is the thing that we can do with the project management. No matter if it's storytelling, if it's experience like a book, if it's a game we are talking about, because my experience is relevant for different segments, different interactives, different entertainment. I was working with a museum as well recently, and every time it works the same. We need to clarify what exactly the story we are trying to reveal, and then the tools we can use to reveal this story. And in this case, you will make your things done in at least a half of budget, a half of time, money, and incomparably reduced stress level, because all your team is on the same page why we develop things, what the things we need, and why we need exactly this. It's not just a random task they have to be busy. They know exactly what they need, especially if you have some visual like this. Doesn't matter how it looks like. The only matters is that all the team is on the same page, and every time when you have questions about what you're doing now, you just check the map and see why and when we need particular stuff to be done. For me, it's really crucial for every team member to know what's the story and what the thing we are doing now and why. No matter how low level story we have, it's not just player who need to know the story, but I've seen lots of characters never built fit into the story mode, because the way the artist imagined the character and the way the character is revealed is can be really different. Or when artists and coders not playing the projects, they do. They really not always know why it should be like that. But when you have all the story depicted like as a plan, not just words that nobody will be read, especially now. Like we all have reels. It's much more consumable. But when we have the story revealed as a plan and visually depicted, it's much more clear to understand the reasons behind every character to be presented, every location, every item to be used. And all the schedules became super clear for everyone involved. In this case, you will have way less stressed team, and trust me, the less stressed team will create much more amazing things. It will be much more creative and still compatible, because they will be working, their brain will be working within the limits you set up through the story and through the tools. So when our brains see those limits, that there is a story we use, there is a story we need to depict, there is a tools we have, what can we do using this? And this is the way every brain in your team start to think about, within my tools, within my skill set, what I can do to make this particular story revealed in the best way. And this is how the team works together because it's just joyful. Because they feel like their part is meaningful, they are involved into the process. So you are not just saving tons of budget, you're creating something like the healthy way of creating building without getting drunk. So please enjoy, try it, and any questions are welcome. Thank you for listening.